Earlier this year, Bikes Online sent me the Polygon Siskiu T6 for a long-term review. I almost always naturally gravitate to review the cheapest bikes available. And the reason for that is because I want to see what a bottom-end budget bike can do. Is it a value for those who are on a budget? You'll never convince me that spending over $1,000 for a bicycle is ever going to be considered cheap. Despite the fact that many mountain bikes cost 5, 6, or even 10 times as much. But this is where we're at. So we have to work within the ecosystem in which we live. And many legitimate mountain bikes are well over $3,000. We're going to do a whole bunch of upgrades to this bike and see how it does. And then we're going to take these upgrades somewhere fun and see if they were worth it. I took the stock T6 for its maiden voyage to Sedona, Arizona, and then to the desert trails around Phoenix. We gave it a hard, honest look and covered the pros and the cons. Then we took it head-to-head against a $7,000 Transition Smuggler. In that video, I got the highest ratio of thumbs down to views I've ever gotten on a video. People don't like when you diminish the value of their very expensive stuff. Now don't get me wrong, I love a well-spec'd high-end bike as much as the next person. But I also have a YouTube channel where I basically build bikes. If I were limited to one bike and a budget, it would be the versatile, good value bike like the T6. We already proved it to be capable. It's a bike I would upgrade over time as budget permits. If you want to see a review of the stock bike, I'll leave a link to it above. In this video, we're going to accelerate the process and do all the upgrades that I would do over time, all in one fell swoop. A good wheel set can be the most impactful upgrade you can make to a mountain bike. Luckily, there are more quality options out there today, like the Hunt Trail Wide wheels. They provide a combination of lightweight and strength, and the rear hub has fantastic engagement. All for about $400 a set. My biggest complaint about the T6 was the heavy, slow-rolling tires. So we are replacing them with the specialized Butcher up front and the specialized Eliminator in the rear. These are the gorgeous tan wall soil searching versions. They're limited edition and I picked them up for $40 a piece. I ordered the Hunt wheels with an XD free hub. We're going to replace the stock Shimano drivetrain with a SRAM GX Eagle setup. With GX Eagle, the gear range jumps up by a good amount, and will save a little weight as well. There's definitely a compatibility issue here between the SRAM chain and the Shimano chainring. So we're going to swap this out. Luckily, I happen to have an old bottom bracket and an old crankset that will work, and it's SRAM. So let's hope that that solves the problem. There was no time to order a compatible chainring, but luckily I had an old NX Eagle crankset and oval chainring from Absolute Black, as well as a dub bottom bracket just laying around. These parts were noticeably lighter than the stock crankset. Let's weigh the bike. Let's weigh this. So when we originally weighed this bike, it was 37.5 pounds with pedals roughly, We have pedals on it right now. I remember specifically feeling like this thing was unbearably heavy. Now we are at, oh wow. Wow. 33 pounds. Changing the wheels and the tires and the group set gets us down from 37 pounds down to 33 pounds. So 33 pounds for a modern aluminum 29er bike is pretty good. Total cost, $450 for the wheel set, $80 for the tires. The drivetrain was pieced together. The shifter cost me $35, the derailleur was $75, and the cassette was $100. The cranks in the bottom bracket are an old used set, so let's give them a value of, say, $50. Assuming you paid full retail price at $1,699 for the bike, that now puts the total cost of the bike at $2,489. And we haven't even touched the suspension yet, so let's touch the suspension. We're going to replace the RockShox and X-Fusion suspension with Suntour. Yes, a big misperception about Suntour is that they are low-end and cheap. The reality is, they make high-end suspension components too. The shock is the Tri-Air 2. This is a piggyback shock that is highly adjustable. Has a 3-position switch with open, medium, and firm settings. A ramp-up can be adjusted using volume spacers, and the small bump sensitivity can be adjusted using this air adjuster on the piggyback. If you're wondering if this is a tough shock, consider this fact. Suntour sponsored riders are running these shocks on their downhill bikes. They're even using them at Red Bull Rampage. I think this will be more than enough shock for this bike. Weight-wise, we are adding a little weight. But we're going to offset that with the lighter weight fork. And yes, that fork is a Suntour. It's the Oron 35, a trail fork with 35mm stanchions. It balances the need for aggressive performance with lighter weight. You get high and low speed compression adjustments, much like you'll find on top-end forks. It also takes volume tokens to adjust the ramp up. And of course you get rebound adjustment. I expect this upgrade to give more support while giving good traction. What I love about the Suntour option is that you can get a lot of features for the money. I bought the Tri-Air 2 for $324. And I bought the Oron in 2021, and it was actually meant for a different build. It was the Ragley Big Al build at the time, but the supply chain disruptions during COVID delayed it, so I ended up using a different fork on that build. Now they stopped making the Oron, but I paid $500 at the time. Today you can buy a Duralux 36 with the same damper for about $350. The Oron is perfect for this bike. So the total cost here is $850 factoring the higher COVID pricing. Now our bike is up to $3,339. Let's take this bike somewhere fun and see if these upgrades are worth it. Oh, more rock going. Is this place fun enough for you? I headed down to Bentonville for the Bentonville Bike Fest to put some miles on this bike. So what's the verdict? When I first took the stock T6 to Arizona, it proved to be a capable bike in stock form. It climbed and descended as good as bikes costing a lot more. That's a testament to how good the Siskiu T platform is. Its biggest negative was weight. It did things like more expensive bikes do, except you got a little more tired doing it. When pointed downhill, it performed admirably, but with the upgrades, the bike really woke up. Still incredibly capable going up and down, but much quicker at it. The lighter wheels and tires added plenty of zip. The extra gears made the long climbs easier, and the suspension was supportive and plush. Overall, it rode like a bike, costing a lot more. Then again, this bike, after upgrades, is over $3,300. I would call that a lot more. That's the cost of a mid-range level mountain bike. As of the release date of this video, you can buy a Siskiu T9 for $2,500. And arguably, it's a better spec than my build. It has a Fox 36 with a top-end Grip 2 damper, and a Fox piggyback shock. It's got an XT drivetrain and TRP Evo brakes. My bike still has the cheap Shimano 201 brakes. It's a comparable spec, but for $800 less than my build. $3,000 can buy you a lot of stuff from the major brands like Trek, Specialized, or Cannondale. And in some instances, you're probably not going to get as high a level parts spec. So if you go to a direct-to-consumer, one of my favorite bikes is the YT Jeffsy. The Core 2 version can be bought for $3,300. It's a great bike, but it doesn't have as good a suspension or wheels as my bike. So upgrading a cheaper bike is worth the extra cost in certain circumstances. So is upgrading a cheaper bike worth the cost? Well, it's complicated. It really depends on what you are looking for. I look for a bike that's going to be nimble, on undulating terrain, and capable going downhill. For others, downhill may be the priority and climbing up the mountain isn't necessarily that important. I will say that if you are looking for a Polygon Siskiu T model, you really can't go wrong with the T8 or the T9. I think both of these bikes are ready to go out of the box for a lot less than what I spent. There might be some aspect of my build that are better, but there are some aspects of those builds that are better than mine. I'll never be delusional enough to believe that building bikes is the cheaper way to go, because it isn't. For me, the enjoyment and therapeutic experience of building a bike is worth the extra cost. Plus, I have very specific taste and I like things to operate a certain way. So at the end of the day, if you're someone that doesn't really work on bikes much, and you don't want to have to go to a mechanic to build or upgrade a bike for you, you can find a perfectly good stock bike for about the same cost, if not less. As far as the Siskiu T6, with all these upgrades, it rides as good as something costing 3 times as much. And I'll keep riding it for a while, because at a minimum, I know everything that goes on with it inside and out. I hope you enjoyed this leg of my journey. Thanks for watching.
There's a return trail back behind us. Debating whether we should just go back. Let's see how fast this is. I want this thing to move. I want some gravity. Woo! All right, we got a bridge coming up. I don't know anything about it. Oh, man. Holy shit, this is a long one. Oh. I don't know where I'm going. Here we go. Here, uphill both ways.